There's a saying that if we look around and keep our eyes open, the universe is constantly winking at us, giving us hints, helping us see the direction we need to go into. And this past week, I finally realized that the universe has been winking at me and telling me that it's time for me to get back to doing this podcast. I had to take some time off from the podcast because of some other commitments in my life. And what I would say is, if you're in a time in your life and you find yourself juggling too many things, if you need to take a step back and prioritize, that is absolutely okay. Most of us feel guilty when we do that. I sure did. But it's when we take the time we need to take care of what we need that we can come back and be better than ever. Someone asked me the other day what I would tell my younger self. And the funny thing is, I've asked almost every single one of my guests that question on the show. This was always one of my favorite questions, and I learned a lot about the individuals when this question came up. A lot of my guests talked about either letting your younger self know you're going to be okay, or don't be too hard on yourself, and I loved those answers. But when someone asked me that question, I had to really think about it. And here's my answer. I would tell my younger self this: you are free. You're free from the things and the pain that used to hold you back. You're free from other people's judgments, and you're free to be and do whatever you want in this world. I get emotional talking to my younger self, but I'm excited to be back doing this podcast, and I truly know and feel that with every conversation I have, every episode I record, every message, my inner child is healing. But that said, the reality is that we're living in a world that is on fire, and some people are losing their moral compass. We gotta take care of our hearts. Now more than ever, I know that this is such an important time to have conversations that connect us and remind us that it's free to be kind. People are looking for a place where the message is an uplifting one that fosters unity and kindness and belonging. And let me be clear, I don't have everything figured out, but what I do know is that I have done the work and continue to do the work. But I am also looking for a place that we can come together and feel good. Because the world has become a place that feels so overwhelming, and sometimes you don't know who to trust or who you can go to. And I hope that over the next couple months, as new episodes come out, that this is a place where you feel like you can come and feel like you are a part of something good, part of something that wants to see good change, part of something that isn't meant to be divisive. What I find in my own life and what I feel like I see in the media is when there's a lot going on and feelings become overwhelming. As humans, we begin to hold less space for other people's emotions because we're trying so hard to deal with our own. And when we're not able to have that emotional awareness for another person or hold that space, that's when people shut down. That's when communication stops. That's when you feel unsafe, and that's when you're so quick to judge another person for their actions or their reaction. I really try, and I'm not always perfect at it, to really understand where someone's coming from. If they do get upset, or if they're crying, or if they're just irate about a subject. I'm not excusing the behavior, but I really try to understand where they're coming from. And I think having that level of patience and ability to hold space for someone else's emotions is just critical if we're ever going to get through probably one of the worst times in the history of the world. I guess another way of putting it is we've got to be a little less selfish and more selfless. I think that when we feel that we're in survival mode, people inherently become more selfish. And we live in a society that tells us that we need to do what's good for us. And we're being conditioned to put up boundaries and walk away from things and people that don't suit us or don't align with us. And I think that that's all valid, and there's a time and a place for that. But I do think that there's an opportunity for us to be a little bit more selfless in a time like this and understand that there's a time and a place for the self, but we also need to be able to show up for other people. I was watching a clip of Dr. Doty speaking. He was a clinical professor of neurosurgery at Stanford, and he also founded and was the director of the Center of Compassion and Altruism and Education. He spent a lot of his career talking about the importance of having compassion for other human beings, being able to understand what's driving other people to act the way that they do. And in this particular clip that I was watching, he was explaining that because of our lives and what's happened to us, there are two types of people: those who come from a mode of love and those who come from a mode of fear in their lives. And depending what mode you operate from, that will dictate how you show up in this world. There's a lot that can drive the reasons why we come from a place of fear. And this whole concept had me thinking the other day about what should be a simple concept, but it's not: freedom. You know, we live in a country where, with everything going on, we still have the basic freedoms. And when you think about it, so many people in the world don't. They don't have the freedom to eat. They don't have the freedom to walk down the street. They don't have the basic things that would make somebody feel safe and what a human being needs as the basis of their survival. So when you think about it, now more than ever, we're in a time where fear is just at the root of a lot of things. And so being able to hold space for people and their emotions and what they're going through can play such an important role in understanding one another and helping each other heal. I also think that a big driver of coming from a fear mode is how you've been treated in your life and how you treat yourself. If you're putting limits on yourself, that can drive fear. If you're putting limits on other people, that can drive fear. The greatest gift you can give to yourself and to someone else is to allow yourself and others to be themselves. And this brings me to a different question, which is, why are we so hard on ourselves? I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about how it's so important to be yourself. But the more important question is, think about why you're not being yourself. Why do we hide behind other people's expectations and what society expects of us instead of just being who we are? Why are we fearful to be who we are? How can you work on that and start to come from a place of love so that you're able to fully embrace who you are and be yourself? One of my favorite quotes that I recently heard is by Andrea Gibson. She was an American poet and activist. The quote is, "Beating yourself up is never a fair fight." I know, that one hits. It's probably one of the most powerful things I've heard in a while. I think when we're hard on ourselves, there's never an end. We'll continue to pick and pick away until we don't even know where we've ended up. And so I just challenge us to be a little bit kinder to ourselves. And I did a whole season on this, to be kinder to yourself so that you can have empathy and understanding for others, and that you can be the positive light in someone's life. Now more than ever, we need people who come from a place of love and from a place of understanding. But we also live in a world right now where our self-love is constantly being challenged. And so finding the strength to continue to work on yourself so that you can show up as your best self is so crucial. Have you guys seen that trend on social media where people post someone saying, "You look happier," and then that person will respond with, "Thanks, I did XYZ." So they'll say stuff like, "Thanks, I healed," or "Thanks, I married the love of my life," whatever it might be. And all of that just goes to show that looking happier really has nothing to do with what you look like on the outside. It all comes from how you feel and the inner peace that you have within you. You know, people talk about resilience a lot, and I think part of working on yourself and going through life, obviously we all go through things, and resilience is an important trait to have. But I want to challenge this concept a little bit. I feel like in our society, we have this image of what resilience looks like. It's almost like resilience is someone who's really strong and they're knocked down and then they get right back up and then they work through it and then everything's okay. But really, I think that we all have our own version and our own definition of resilience. And sometimes, my resilience might look really ugly, and someone else's resilience might look exactly the textbook way that you think somebody should get through something. But just remember, when you're in it, give yourself some grace. Resilience does look different for everybody, and the journey to work on yourself and find love for yourself and hold space for yourself will look different for everybody. And just because it looked a little different or tumultuous for you doesn't mean that you're not a resilient person. Have you ever heard of the concept of your upper limit? I read this book called Be Seen by Jen Gottlieb. She's a motivational speaker and best-selling author, and she had come across this concept of the upper limit, which is defined as when we stop moving forward because the fear of failure becomes greater than our belief in what's possible. Think about that. I think that a lot of us set our upper limit way lower than it should be, because in the world that we live in right now, everything's out there on socials and everybody has the ability to judge us if we don't meet our goals. And so it's much safer to set our upper limit lower so that we can meet it and be celebrated. It's hard to fail in this society because everything is so public. So if you don't meet a goal or if something you're launching doesn't succeed right away, there's a lot of judgment with that. And so I think human nature is to set our limit a little lower so that we can meet it. I challenge us though, if you find yourself doing this, take a minute to ask yourself why, and then take a minute to remind yourself of why you're on this journey. It's about you and it's for you. And so make sure you're not dimming your own light to make other people more comfortable. When the world and people are going through the amount of turmoil and trauma that people are going through right now, the power of communication and forgiveness is unparalleled. I think for me, the last few years have really given me an opportunity to work on forgiveness, both of myself and of others, and of situations that didn't sit well. And what I've realized is forgiveness of something or someone is actually less about the other person and more about you and the peace that you feel after you've been able to forgive and come to peace with a situation. Obviously, one of the most common examples of forgiveness is when someone has hurt you, and that can be a friend, a family member, a lover. What I'm learning with age is that throughout your life, relationships will end. And at some point, one or more of those people will come back around because they've had the opportunity to grow and to heal on their own. And at times, they just want some sort of validation, but they'll come back around. And many times, they've realized your worth and what you brought into their lives, but after the fact. And they want to be able to come back and open that door for their healing. And what I'll tell you is, I believe that when someone comes back and they've realized how amazing you are after the fact, it's okay for you to acknowledge that and use that for your healing and give them space to express themselves. But you don't owe this individual anything. So don't feel like forgiveness means letting them back into your life. You can acknowledge the situation and still move on. I've also learned that by the time somebody actually comes back into your life to offer an apology, you've probably done the work and you've forgiven, and it's a nice to hear, but you don't need it. And that's a powerful place to be. I am so excited for this new chapter of humanity. We're going to continue to build a community where people feel like they belong and feel connected, a place where people can come and listen to an episode on their way to work or while they're having their morning coffee and walk away with a little tidbit or a healing nugget that they can use in their lives. Before I let you go, I wanted to do something a little bit different to end today's episode. I know that I've spent a lot of time spotlighting guests on the podcast, and a lot of you have actually told me that you want to get to know me a little bit better. And so I thought, what better way than to take some of your questions that I've heard throughout the last couple months and answer them on the show. So here goes. First question. What is a life lesson you learned the hard way and the consequence? I think a life lesson that I've learned, I think probably many times, and one that I'm finally starting to listen to, is believe people when they show you who they are. For example, if someone tells you they are not looking for a serious relationship, believe them. Or if someone is never showing up for you in a friendship, believe them. Don't try to change people. That's not your job, and you'll spend a lot of time either trying to change someone or changing yourself to accommodate that relationship or friendship. And that's never a good place to be. That is a form of abandoning yourself. Here's another question. What is a personal flaw that is being worked on, and how is it being improved? Oh gosh. Okay, I think we're all flawed, but flaws are beautiful, and they're a part of who we are. I think a personal flaw that I've tried to work on is that I can be self-deprecating sometimes, and I do it because I want the other person to feel more comfortable. It's almost like trying to level set us both. And I haven't really had the time to dig into that, but I do notice it when I do it, and I feel like I'm more conscious of it. So it happens less often, but it does happen, and there's just no reason that we should be dimming ourselves to make other people more comfortable. Next question. What gives you hope for the future? I think young people give me hope. This young generation is not afraid of being their authentic self. They are living in their truth. They are standing up for what they believe in, and they are not afraid of the consequences. They will do what's right, and they don't care if they get in trouble. And I just really, really admire that. Next question. If you had to choose between being single and being in a relationship, which would you choose? Okay, this one's interesting because I am single. And I think that we all need and want connection on some level. So I think a relationship is a beautiful thing. But I also know that when I change my viewpoint on being single from like a negative thing to being one of unlimited possibilities and getting a chance to work on myself and being able to do what I like to do, I learned that ultimately, if you don't know yourself and you don't love yourself, you're not going to be happy in either situation. So it ultimately starts with you, and I do think that being single and having the time to work on yourself and being able to reflect gives you the ability to learn a lot about yourself. So my advice here would be don't waste that time if you are single. Invest in yourself and love yourself. Feed your soul. Next question. Do you want kids? I actually get asked this question a lot because I'm 40 years old and I don't have kids, but I think kids are amazing. I think they teach you so much, and I know it's a love that I don't understand, and it's something that I would love to experience when the time is right and if that's in the cards for me. Last question. What do you do outside of the podcast? Okay, this is funny because I realize that a lot of people don't know that humanity is not what I do full time. I'm actually a sales executive, and I have learned so much from my career, including the ability to listen and to have conversations with people and to make people feel comfortable and seen. And now I get to take those skills and use them on the podcast, which is really, really amazing. That was really fun. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you so much for all the support, for checking in over the last few months and asking me when the next episode was coming out. It's this type of love and support that has meant so much to me, and it gives me the drive to keep going forward in this journey. Thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. I'll see you soon.